What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about why next week is going to be very important as we have Nvidia's earnings, not to mention the catalyst that caused the market to drop. Now, just know that I'm not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total. And the offer is very soon at the end of March. Anyways, so for the markets, we started off with this nice little push. Then we got this dip. And instead of holding our 50 EMA, we saw SPY continue to lose that and dump all the way down to our 200 EMA on the 4-hour basis. So the market's remaining weak right now. There's a good chance it's going to dip a little bit more before we start to see some buyers who try to defend us. I'm going to break down why that is and some very, very key levels and why we sold off the way we did first. So I first want to mention that we saw some stocks in the pharmaceutical section doing relatively well. So if you look at certain stocks like Pfizer, Moderna, and the list goes on, they're doing quite decently. Health technology was decent after some news that came out. But then despite that, the majority of the stocks were in the red. If you look at finance, technology, if you look at like retail, the list goes on, everything was pretty much in the red. We saw Nvidia sell off quite a bit. So did Google and Meta. We saw big tech dip. We saw Tesla dump. What is going on? Why is the market doing this? Well, we got some data today, right? We had the S&P Global Composite Manufacturing and Services PMI reports, and the numbers were not too good. The composite PMI was at about 50.4. That is below the forecast of 52.7. And then services PMI, the services sector showed a lot of weakness with 49.7. That was below expectations. So very weak business activity data, very, very weak looking data so far. And then we also got the Michigan Consumer Sentiment reports. Unfortunately, the 5-year inflationary expectation is well above expectations, meaning that people are expecting inflation to go up again at 3.5% versus the current forecast, which should have been around 3.3%. So we're seeing a decline in business activity. We're seeing certain sectors in our economy contracting, and we're seeing people expecting inflation to start going up higher. That's not the best of news for the Fed and etc., because that's going to cause consumers to change their behavior. When consumers change their behavior, that affects prices and current supply and demand levels. Another example of that would be how we're seeing certain, food prices are now changing because of anticipation of tariffs, because of other factors. So that's the reason why we're starting to see a big shift in prices. This is also going to be affecting businesses and factors just like that. But looking at the data, we actually have some nice charts right over here. US business activity growth came close to stalling in the month of February, according to the Flash PMI survey data. Despite the fact that this happened, this is still offsetting the manufacturing growth, which is quite decent. So the services sector are seeing a downtrend. Okay, we're starting to see business activity slowing. But then if you look at the overall manufacturing numbers, they're still not too bad. So that's what was essentially going on, at least for now. Sentiment's a little bit weaker as a result of this. And if you look at manufacturing numbers, they weren't too bad. That was like, okay. So not the best of news. We're expecting higher prices. We're starting to see a slowdown in business growth. And the list goes on, guys. This is just not at all what the market wanted. That's the first negative piece of news that came out. The second thing would involve Donald Trump's tariffs. So Donald Trump has mentioned that he wants to impose tariffs on Canada and Mexico at a rate of 25%. He's saying he wants to do this as soon as March. This is also leading to some negative sentiment because of how this is going to be affecting prices and factors like this. Remember, as soon as he made the announcement, we saw the market dump. And then as a result, the market recovered once the tariffs were delayed. So we'll see if Donald Trump gives us an update on this. Are they going to officially impose these tariffs as soon as March 1st? Or will they be delayed even more? Will he use this for negotiations? We'll have to wait and see. But if they are imposed just like that in a flash, it's going to be affecting a lot of goods. It's going to incentivize these countries to once again retaliate and throw tariffs back at the US. So we'll see what Trump's plan is. We'll just have to give this some time. Plans could change and this could be used for negotiations. So give it some time. Once again, we saw the same thing happen with other countries. So we want to be very, very patient. The last thing, and the reason why we saw, a lot of these U.S. health sector stocks doing well, despite the market being slow, is because of this news. I still think it's worth mentioning. So, unfortunately, there's a new virus that has been discovered in China. Not the best of news. There's a lot of fear that this has the potential to hit those pandemic levels. But the thing about the virus is that this was just discovered and it's not necessarily spreading. So, not the best of news, but if this starts spreading, okay, it becomes very serious. And this could lead to a lot of consequences. Fortunately, it's not spreading right now. At least according to reports, I'm not seeing any report that suggests it's spreading, across China, etc. So we just want to make that very, very clean, very, very clear. Excuse me. We'll see how this goes. Hopefully, this news just kind of passes by and this does not spread. If that's the case, it's going to be okay, and I really hope that's the case. So with that being said, we'll see what this leads to, at least moving forward. For now, there's no reported cases, and I think things should be okay. Besides that, for earnings, keep in mind we have Domino's and Berkshire Hathaway on Monday. We'll see how this affects the overall market. On Tuesday, we have lots of retail. We have like the Home Depot, we have AMC, Planet Fitness, and the list goes on. And then finally, on Wednesday, we have Lowe's and a few more coming out. And then Nvda is going to be a big one. Nvda is going to be huge. We have AI, Salesforce also announcing earnings on top of it, but Nvda is going to be a big one. This could be a make or break for the markets. That's why it's going to be very important. So that being said, guys, a lot of this price action depends on news. What's going to happen with, there's this virus that was discovered. What's going to happen with the tariffs and such. I do want to mention we look a little bearish, but it depends on if we can hold our 200 EMA or not. We haven't lost key support. So if we see a little touch of like 597 to 598, the last time we hit this area, we did bounce actually very, very nicely. We've gotten many bounces the last time we hit 598. So the most likely move is that we rebound like this and we try to get a retest of this resistance, which if we break, then we're looking for a move back up to like this imbalance towards like 607 before we start to turn like this. That's the most likely move if we could hold 597. If we don't hold 597 and we start losing that, then yes, I could be looking for us to dip to the low 590s. For now, we're near the 200 EMA at 599. We might see a little touch of 597, then try to bounce off of that. If we could hold that next week, I'm going to be looking for a bounce. I think that's the most likely possibility, especially because we have Nvidia's earnings very soon. On the QQQ, we could decline a little bit more. I think this is weaker than SPY. We're going to be looking for that the 525 to about 522 area. Right here, we have a very, very big support. Notice that we hit 518 bounced, we hit 522 bounced, and then we hit 522 bounced. So it's possible we decline to like that 522 area. If we could hold our 200 EMA, I do expect us to try to make a nice recovery move back up towards 533. It's very possible we try to do something like that. If we could hold 522 to 525, I think there's a very good chance we test that and we'll see if we hold. Look for a little bit more downside than a potential bounce. Russell 2000, although it's declining, so we had this inverse head and shoulders. It's not looking too good right now. We'll see if we can try to hold these lows right here. So the main support to watch for is going to be around this like 217 area. If that holds, we could bounce back up for like 220. If that fails us, we could be dipping even more. So watch 217. We could dip a bit more, and we'll see how we end up reacting. So give it some time. For ES, we're dipping right here. As you can see, we have this decline. We're watching to see what's going to happen with this like 6,000 area. And then we also have 5980. But I think that we might decline closer to 6,000 flat or below. And we'll see if we get a bounce. So I do anticipate a little bit more downside on ES. I think 6,000 flat could be coming. I don't think we're ready to bounce yet. It might decline a little bit more. But despite that, I just want to mention that it's not about, are we about to decline really hard? Can we get a bounce back up? There have been instances where we came back inside of our like wedges after getting like a breakout from these channels. And then we just continue to go higher. So if we dip a little bit more, then we get an immediate bounce. We can reclaim this trend line. There's a good chance it will bounce. I'm going to be watching for that. I do anticipate a little bit more downside to 6,000 flat or below. So it might dip a little bit more here, and then we'll see if we get some kind of rebound back above this trend line to start bouncing like this. But I do anticipate a little bit more downside first. On NQ, we are looking kind of weak. We're starting to lose the support. So we had this support right here. We need to get back above 21,770. Otherwise, we're going to likely dip a little bit more. So it might be dipping close to about 21,500 first before it tries to rebound. And we'll see if we can make a V-shaped recovery if we can try to reclaim this blue resistance. If we reclaim it, then we're going to be looking pretty good. But I do anticipate that we might dip a little bit more from here. For Bitcoin, we're looking for this resistance around this 96,800 area. And support's all the way down here around 95,000. Might kind of push a little higher here before it starts to decline. But what could help the markets is Nvda. I do like the pattern here. When you really zoom out, you guys can see we've been trading in a very, very sideways range for many, many months. But there is one thing I am eyeing, and that's the possibility of an inverse head and shoulders. I'm sure you guys can see it quite clearly. We'll see if Nvidia forms like a left shoulder here, a nice head, and then this like right shoulder. If we do base at like 130, can we bounce and start, pushing? Give this some time to see if this develops. Earnings is going to be a big factor. I do anticipate a little bit more downside though, closer to like 130 flat. And as long as we could hold that, I think there's a good chance this might play out. This could be a trap for a lot of the bears. Tesla, I'm not as confident about this yet. It might decline a bit more because we're very close to our key fib level right over here. So if you look at this, we're currently near the 0.618 fib level. We're actually in the golden pocket. So typically, you could go as low as like the 0.786 from that 330 zone before it tries to bounce. But you would be anticipating some kind of bounce around this zone. As long as there's no like major bad news, it could try. So I do anticipate a bounce on Tesla soon, but it might dip a little bit more between that 335 to 330 area. Then we're going to be looking for a big bounce back up towards 350. I'll be watching that very closely. Apple might retest 243 before it tries to bounce. So look for a small decline to the 20 EMA and see if buyers defend us. AMD was trying to break out. I did give you guys a warning about this. I know people are trying to buy it. I said to be careful because we love to reject off this trend line over again. And this time around, we ended up forming a nice rising wedge. And you guys can see we actually broke out of it today. And then we rejected off a back test. This is a very, very beautiful short. And the move ended up failing. Coinbase is looking weak. We're going to be looking for an attempt to dip a little bit more. I could be looking for essentially 235 or below. Amazon's on a bit of a downtrend, but it's at critical support right now. See this line right here? We have resistance becoming support. So we're going to be watching this 215 area if it holds or not. If it holds, we're looking for a bounce to about 218. If not, we will be dipping lower. So we'll see about that. Meta's on a bit of a downtrend. We're going to be watching to see if we can reclaim 690. Otherwise, we may be dipping to this imbalance towards 675. So we'll see how it goes. We could be declining a little bit more, at least for other tickers out here, such as like Microsoft, especially we have a lot of wicks right here around 405. So it loves to touch 405, 404, and then before it tries to rebound. So there's a good chance it might be doing that. Google, same thing. It's actually losing structure at 183, which is not a good sign. I could be looking for a retest of like 180 to 178. That's where we have previous resistance becoming support. So maybe a little bit lower before it tries to bounce. I could see like 180 to 178 first. But overall, guys, one thing I want to call out is that the VIX, it doesn't always just break out unless there's like a really, really big catalyst, which you don't really have right now. There's no major catalyst for the market to dump insanely hard yet. For now, what you'll notice is that the VIX has a tendency of kind of pumping, then dumping, pumping, then dumping. And it does this over and over again. So is the VIX about to pump and then start slowly declining as the market recovers? That could be what's about to happen. This may not be the big rug pull we're waiting for. It may not be time yet. We'll have to see depending on Nvidia's earnings and stuff, but I do anticipate that there could be a bit more downside before the market tries to base, and there's going to be a very good chance of a bounce to try to get back up to 605 to 607 on SPY, and for the QQQ to try to reclaim, the 535 to 538 area. So look for a bit more downside, and we'll see if we can end up basing very soon. There's a good chance the market will do that. I'm not too concerned yet. There's no like major bad catalyst yet. There's nothing like that right now. We just got a bad PMI report, but it's just one piece of data. I'm sure it's not. This is not like a CPI or something that extreme. This is not like an FOMC meeting. So I think the market still has hope. So give it some time, and I'll talk more about this maybe later on. Thank you for listening, guys. Have a good rest of your day, and peace out.